non-vegan people up, but kind of wanted to take a break from debating people. If I pull somebody up, I'm gonna like, we're just gonna speed run the conversation because I don't know, I'm tired of being up here sometimes and being on here for an hour and a half, 2 hours talking to one person. And then only for them to be like, a Phil bro. Spend an hour and a half talking about nothing, you know? Shit gets exhausting. So, I mean, I know a couple other people are live. I think Lydia's live. But it's fine. I'll hang out here for as long as it runs, I guess. See what happens, see who comes around. What was I gonna do? Oh, I don't even have my headphones on. Put on my headphones. It's pretty quiet. Quiet today for a Monday. If I just wave at everybody. Let's see. I don't hear myself on YouTube. Why? What's happening? Vegan chicken nuggets. Or mushroom steak. Yeah, how come I don't hear myself on YouTube? Why is YouTube always the thing that's frustrating? Oh, there we go. Hey, Ingrid. Herbivorous Ouroboros. Nice. You got tired of me mispronouncing sarin? Yeah, I get that. I do sometimes feel like it's odd sometimes to substitute like a whole main dish for like I feel like poor techniques of like making jackfruit tacos, like substituting a protein for a carbohydrate because people think like, oh, I'm going vegan is like a terrible food choice. You eat every day? I would hope so, man. I eat every day too. Serene. Listen, it just takes time, okay? Saren, Saren. Save a horse, ride a cowboy. Jesus. Sweet potato wedges and tofu. That sounds good though. That almost sounds like a breakfast burrito, like potatoes and tofu. That sounds good. But making a taco with like jackfruit and cheese is like maybe I've been weightlifting for too long, but where's the protein, right? I need some protein. Um, so yeah, I guess just to put it out there, anybody's welcome to come up. It's gonna be a really chill stream. I'm actually gonna not cut it, but I'm gonna go make sure I only go at the hour or less. And yeah, I'm gonna talk about something at the end real quick. Little mini announcement, I guess. But yeah, it just depends on how. I'm not gonna sit here and talk for an hour. Maybe I'll talk for an hour if it's interesting. But I'm not gonna sit here and ramble to you all for an hour. Hyped in a very mini way. What's up, Ben? How you been? That's cool. I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Not really much going on, I guess. I was listening to Not Your Mom, Not Your Milk's live yesterday, and it got my mind thinking about activism and all that stuff. So no, just like um, I don't know. I guess like the greater impact of TikTok lives, and I don't know. It made me want to take a break, take a break from having conversations with people. Sometimes it feels like a waste of time. Sometimes it doesn't. But lately, it's felt like a little bit of a waste of time, or not in a bad way. Just I was telling Alec earlier that I think the last two lives I had, they were like okay conversations, but like it's like an hour and a half long conversation where it's just an hour of this person just trying to be a Phil bro, and it's like, is this really helping at all? Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that I found all of you, and it like jump started something in me. Like even my partner was telling me last week that I sound happy and I sound different, and this whole being on TikTok and being around all of you and learning and having conversations with people has made me a happier person. Like I'm grateful for that. But I am thinking if I am wondering if I jumped into it too fast. Maybe I just need to take a step back a little bit and learn a little bit more. Yeah. I just feel like I'm trying to crack the code. I took a when I first started getting in the space of creating content, at least like vegan content. Um, I did a reaction video to David Ram's one of his videos where he interviewed was it Danny Ishe, lifting vegan logic, and he was just asking him questions about like I guess how you would approach certain questions when you have conversations with people like non-vegans. And anyway, long story short, I wanted to do my own where I responded to his questions because I wanted to see if like if it was a test for me to understand like do I really understand veganism? Like I know I've been vegan for 6 years, but do I understand it and how would I approach these questions? But he ended up contacted me, David Rams, and he's like, oh, I like your video, like it's really great. You really get veganism, and I think you're on the right track. Welcome to the space. And he let me mute this person. And he invited me to a WhatsApp group with a bunch of other vegan content creators and activists, and I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, wow, this person that I never thought I would meet invited me to his space. So long story short, they provided us with like access to this online course, and it was about just content creation, like basic content creation, how to create hooks, how to like pull people in, how to make your thumbnails, catchy, how to make your content consistent, all the like intricacies of just basic content creation. But one thing I learned from that group and having conversations with them is that um, as a vegan, it's a hard place to navigate because you want to obviously reach as many people as you can, but you almost have to make content for non-vegans. So it's like I'm trying to. I thought that TikTok was that having conversation, like having this space to pull non-vegan people up. Um, but I don't know. I know that I'm being a little bit too hard on maybe just the outreach of TikTok. But at the same time, there's like 99% of the time is wasted time of people that just genuinely don't care. They're just trolling, and you do get the occasional people that do care and do hear you out, and they at least make attempts to try to go vegan or to look into it or watch a documentary. But at the same time, I feel like could I could I be spending my time elsewhere doing like content that's gonna last longer than this 1 hour conversation, like a video or something. So I don't know. Anyway, I know that was a long story, but hearing Andy talk with I don't know their names, but on his show yesterday, talk with them and them talking about the how useful it is really TikTok, and that eventually it just turns into just all the vegans are here and there's not much opposition or people learning. Got me thinking about what I should do, I guess. I actually really like that idea. I think I think there are times where I have that drive to want to do something like that. Like obviously, when you have a conversation with somebody and that conversation ends and they've said some things that are like not actually factually correct, actually factually, not factually correct, but maybe if I had the what's the word I'm looking for, control over my live to just like pull up, okay, this person talked about this, and then further go into some of the things they said and show on screen, whether it be research studies or diagrams or graphs. Maybe having something like that would be cool. Um, but oh man, what was I gonna say? Just I don't know. I popped into the vegan teachers live yesterday last night. I don't know why. I was like, um, Andy had said during their show about her, being in it for the money. And I think when I first came into the content creation or like the vegan space of creating content for veganism, and that was going to be my activism. I saw it as a way of like, okay, this is gonna eventually be my way to make money, and I don't think that was the best approach. I felt like that's definitely where some of the other vegans in this space have kind of landed, and I don't agree watching them. I don't agree with how they do their stuff. And I popped into her live yesterday, and I saw, she had like over 1,000 people. I'm like, Jesus, like it's insane how many people she gets, but she has like kids coming up on her live, and it's like obvious rage bait of, oh, don't put that cowboy hat on my head, blah blah blah, and Andy said it perfectly, like that. It's like they're only really doing that kind of stuff to rage bait people to spend more money by adding, putting more cowboy hats on her head, and it's like, I don't want to. I'm glad I didn't like fall down that rabbit hole of doing it, as a way of like, okay, I want to be an activist, but I also need some sort of financial stability to be able to do both. Um, so I think that's where I'm at now. I'm like, maybe I need to take a step back and think about um, how to really get my head straight on what's the best type of content to provide to people to get the message out there without the idea of making money from it. You know?
Sponsored content and partnerships and corporate gigs and things like that. That's when it gets into that like snowball effect, I think, of like, okay, like this is a real business now, and now I'm focused on the money and not the message, and that's where it kind of gets out of hand, I think. And I think what I mean, you can tell, right? Like you mentioned with the vegan teacher and others like that are obviously like relying on this for their income, which inherently I don't think there's anything wrong with. But if that is your focus, right, is on money and not the activism, that can be a huge problem. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about more and figure out, the ethics behind it and how to support yourself while also like spreading the message, that you want to spread. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a, I don't know, a gray area, but I'm the kind of person that also believes that the future is like in getting monetized for content. just inherently the way technology and everything is going. So I think that's kind of the future anyway. So you should be in a field, whether that's digital art or activism or whatever. It should be focused around something you're passionate about. Like that's how to make these things sustainable. Regardless of money, like if you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's not going to be sustainable, right? So yeah, it's like weighing all of that out, I think, is the most complicated thing. And then also like staying true to like your original goals, and trying to not waver from that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like what got me thinking about this whole thing, and then Andy's live yesterday, kind of being the tipping point of I guess to really get me thinking about what I want to do was, I saw that article. I think I mentioned it before, but I saw the article about the twin experiment, and I'm like, oh wow, they have an update on like how all the people are doing, and it was that like none of them stuck to a plant based diet. They all reduced, and it made me think that like, man, when you look at, for me personally, when I think about all the popular vegan, just I'll just say YouTube, since that's like my primary place for like media consumption. Um, when I look at all the vegans that I follow, the ones that are the most successful are the ones that are like easily relatable to everybody, and it's always the cooking, channels.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I feel like it's still also like, it's obviously a good thing to get people to stop consuming animals and to be like, hey, like look, you can have all these foods without eating animal products. But it also feels like people still never make the connection, and if they never make that connection with realizing why these channels are choosing to show people vegan food, then they're never gonna really understand why that is, and it's so much easier for them to just fall under whatever sort of pressure and just go back to consuming animals, or still go to zoos and still do XYZ. So it's like, is that is that enough? Should we should we, or I guess me, should I be okay with that and just like appreciate that at least they're reducing in some capacity? But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the part that so many people struggle with. And I think the important thing, like for me, something I've always tried to do is like recognize where people are at, and understand that not everybody's ready to accept like empathy or compassion or like vegan ethics. And trying to meet them where they're at and explain like all of the logical, rational reasons maybe first. And eventually, like in my case, like coming to the realization that you don't need meat or dairy or animal products, that we don't need to hunt animals, for conservation, that all of this exploitation that we do towards animals isn't necessary. And that is, for me, being a rational, like scientifically focused person, that was my path towards finding empathy for animals. Not everybody's ready to connect with, like inherent rights necessarily for animals, or, just even basic compassion and empathy for animals. So I think a lot of times it's important to have content that connects with people where they're at, but also remembering that your goal is to bring them towards, your ethical perspective, right? And the vegan kind of ethics. And I think that's where a lot of people fail because they lean more into, well, I just want as many views and I don't want to upset people, right? Whereas if you lean into it and you're more like, okay, I want to, engage with non-vegans, but I also want to still share this message. That's where I think that difference between like intention is like really important, because if your intention is to just get views and get monetized and make money, that's going to be a lot different content than it is if your intention is to, spread the message about veganism, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I I look at some of these content creators that do food stuff, and there are a couple. The only one that I can think of that comes to mind, and I don't follow that many um, vegan food YouTubers, but I know that the burger dude, he always will have like a little snide remark, like making fun of and like pointing out like, oh, no need to eat animals because here's this recipe, and I guess sometimes I'm like, man, I wish there was more of that, because
Yeah.
I saw an article. I was trying to do some research. On some veganism topics so I can like get back into creating content for the YouTube side. And I stumbled on the what's her name? Freya Cox, 23-year-old Freya Cox, plant-based. What does she sell? Plant-based friendly business sells baking kits, and she was the first vegan contestant on the Great British Bake Off in 2021. And I found this like article. I'm like, okay, cool. Like this would be a good, interesting, maybe a good, interesting talking point. To talk about, being on a show that's as popular as Great British Bake Off and being vegan and having to navigate that space of, I have to create all these complicated dishes or desserts that, with the fact that I can't use certain products. And I was reading this article and I just like I realized that um, even though she could be such a pivotal turning point for having more people make that connection. I read this article, and none of it is has any questions in regards to her experiences like being a vegan or why did you go vegan or what was it like and what are some of the misconceptions that people have when approaching a show like the Great British Bake Off and thinking, no, you can't do that if you don't use eggs or you don't use milk or you don't use butter, and everything in that whole article and interview was just like, oh, like silly stuff unrelated to veganism at all that you would just ask anybody. Oh, like who would, what's your, what was it? What are some of your hopes ahead? Well, if you're hosting a dinner party, who would you invite? What's your favorite bake? What's your childhood food memory? What's your dream business? It's like I wish that, and it's not a fault to her. I thought that this article would have been so much more interesting to hear about navigating that space as a vegan, and it just was like nonsense questions.
Yeah.
Um, and it made me think like, man, like it's probably not her. It's just the article staying away from the talking point of veganism and animal exploitation. That like I don't even know if she's really vegan.
Yeah.
I only read one article on her, so I'd have to do more research. But like, how do I know she's just not plant based? Because nothing in this article tells me that she's vegan, other than the fact that they claim she's vegan. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that goes back to something Andy and Roger and them talk a lot about is like, the message and how that's changed and been kind of contorted over time. And like, yeah, obviously, like the media and the general population doesn't really want to hear all of that stuff, but I feel the same way. I'm going to be going on to a very, very pro hunting podcast soon to do a debate interview type thing. And the guy who asked me to come on, the main host or whatever, who I didn't really think they would actually invite me on and publish me because all of my advocacy is very anti-hunting, like clearly.
Hmm.
And but they invited me on, and they said, "Oh yeah, we've had a few vegans before." I'm like, "Okay, that's interesting. Let me go do some research and see what vegans they've had on." Of course, it's nobody I've ever heard of, and keep in mind, like this is a pretty big hunting podcast. Like this is an international nonprofit that has like boots on the ground all over the place. And they do a lot of interviews. And the like two or three vegans they had on were exactly like the person you were just describing, the baker. Like they did not actually talk about ethics. They did
Most
not
people
actually talk
don't know
about
that the most dangerous place in the United States isn't what you might expect.
Oh,
what.
sorry about that. Sorry about that. A tab
I
came up. No, I'm sorry about that. Go. Yeah.
thought that
So.
was I thought that was you responding to me. I was like, what?
No. Sorry. A stupid tab came up with a freaking ad and started
Oh,
playing.
you're good. You're good. But yeah, I mean, the few vegans I interviewed were just like that. Like, didn't actually touch on ethics. They were like, "Oh yeah, some people are vegan for the environment. Some people are vegan for their health." And it's like, no, like you are not vegan. Like you don't understand, veganism or the history or like ethics. Like the people they had on were not willing to actually be confrontational, or to like challenge any of the things that this podcast and this whole nonprofit is pushing forward. And so like now I'm in a position where I'm like about to come in and do the same thing I did on the radio show I went on to, where like I'm just going to drop these truth bombs, I probably shouldn't say that, but drop these, facts of truth, about ethics and about, the treatment of animals and how hunting and even for conservation isn't in alignment with the ethical treatment of animals. And I don't know how they're going to receive that, but I'm very much trying to strategize it, for a non-vegan or a hunting audience. And like I'm very comfortable with that. Like that's where I've come from, like that's the people I'm surrounded by. So I'm constantly like walking on eggshells with hunters like that. So I'm pretty familiar with like how to approach it, but I also like very much want to drive home, the ethics side of it and the fact that it is unnecessary, and all of these points. And like that's just for me, right? Like that's for me trying to share my message, more so than just like be friendly with the, podcast host, and I think that's like a place a lot of vegans get uncomfortable, or even just plant-based people in talking about just their diet choices. People get uncomfortable talking about that because they're like not confident in it or they don't want to be controversial. And it's like, no, man, like there's literally billions of animals being slaughtered unnecessarily. Like this is definitely something we need to be advocating, about and speaking up for. And I just never understand why you wouldn't take any opportunity, you have in when your platform to speak at least to some degree, in your own voice about these types of things. Like I've just never understood that. And I totally understand why a lot of like plant-based or vegan creators get, the flack that they do for not speaking about it or being too subtle about it.
Yeah, because then I guess when I think about like how awesome that is for you to be on that podcast and be obviously I don't know how it's gonna go because you're the odd one out, right? In a space full of hunters. But I guess my question, since you're saying this is a very popular hunting podcast, um, in fear of there being a lot of your information being cut out, do you have any like rightful control over like how exactly that podcast is going to be edited or posted? Because they could easily just say, "Yeah, we don't like that part that you pointed that out, and let's just cut that whole segment." And I feel like that's another unfortunate thing that maybe similar to the Freya Cox that interview. What if she did go into a lot of the vegan stuff, but they're like, we're not a vegan a magazine, and we don't want that being
Right.
published with that sort of stuff, so we cut all that out. You know?
Right. Sorry, I just had to block Mandy. I didn't realize that was Mandy there, but she's definitely not somebody we want hanging out here. Sorry, Mandy.
Yeah, I saw
But
that.
yeah, I plan to record it myself, like I did with the radio interview, just in case they do something like that. But yeah, they haven't sent me anything to sign or anything like that. So technically, I mean, if it's not under contract or anything, there's shouldn't be any reason to do that. But obviously, I've had people in the past like not necessarily threaten me, but raise a lot of concern about publishing content that I didn't like get authorized before. But it's like, hey man, like you're doing this on the internet, like you didn't have any agreement up front, like that's just not how these things work, like yeah, Mandy definitely has a few alt accounts though, so be on the lookout. But yeah,
Okay.
she's do you know Mandy?
No, I think the name seems familiar, but no.
Yeah, she'd probably be on a list somewhere. Oh man. But yeah,
Oh, she's a
appreciate
breeder.
you. Yeah, she's a dog breeder, and she comes on to Vegan Lives after she's had a few cocktails and just gets very very combative. But she like trolls us, like she just like straight up stalks us and stuff. So it's kind of flattering, but also like weird. Like one time she joined a live and was like, I was talking to Ben on the phone. I'm like, woman, I do not know you. Like, you were tagging me in the comments. Is that what you mean? Like, I don't. And, Persona was like all confused. Like, wait, you actually talked to Ben? It's like, no, no, not in a million years. Sorry.
Yeah, that's another frustrating thing, but I guess that comes with anything, especially putting yourself out there. You know, you're gonna have the same commenters or the same people coming up on your TikTok lives and saying the same nonsensical stuff. But it's a lot easier to shut that out when you're in the space of just creating content on a platform versus being up here on TikTok and seeing the chat and just the repeated people requesting to come up and saying
I
that.
don't know, man. I don't know. Like the some of the hunting videos, like the one that posted on here on TikTok, it's pinned. I think it's just over 60K views. And then I had a few on Instagram, similar like hunting, conservation, coyote related or predator protection related videos that got over like 60 or 70,000 views. And the ratio of comments is like literally like 5,000 comments, and maybe 20 likes, because it's from the vegans who follow me. But, but like, and that's thousands of like mostly hateful, like not all hateful, of course, but either hateful or misinformation being spread. And like, I've just gotten to where like, I guess my skin is so thick that I just like brush it off, and don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is overwhelming sometimes. Like I can't even go on Instagram at least for the like 2 months that it was like still getting a lot of views. I couldn't go on Instagram even like 2 or 3 times a day because every time I'd loaded after like say 5 hours, I'd have about 30 comments. And again, most of those were hateful or they were misinformation. And I just left them alone. I tried to ignore them, but then you get all of your other, notifications mixed in there. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like part of being a content creator where you understand that you're going to be kind of stirring the pot in those circles is just being ready to ignore it, right? Or even just like lock down the comments and not even allow for it. But then you don't get the chance to actually have people's feedback, which I think is important. And honestly, those to me like show how frustrated people get on these topics when somebody shares a different opinion or they share like real scientifically backed information. It just shows how upset people get about reality, and like being called out for it. Because a lot of these things traditionally have just not been called out in society because, people like we were talking about the plant-based people or vegetarians in society, they just don't really want to speak out about it because it's not an ethical issue necessarily. It's just like a personal choice. When veganism is, obviously we care about the ethics, right, and convincing other people of their contradictions and their hypocrisy. And like, yeah, I think that engagement is important. And but yeah, it takes a certain type of person or a certain type of conditioning, I guess, to be built up to be kind of like immune to all of those hateful comments and the ridiculous like circular arguments and all of that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not the best at managing that.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely been. I know that like that as a whole doesn't tax on me too much. I'm grateful that I'm a very grounded person and that some of the things that these people say doesn't affect me emotionally. It does suck to see like the repeated people that just I guess are just not. Um, they could be educated people and just don't even care to listen to some of the things that they say and that you say, and they don't leave the conversation willing to learn or to change or even
Yeah,
consider the fact they just I don't know they just want to be the same person. That was I don't know.
yeah. I know it's a little conspiratorial, but When I first heard this idea from my friend Casey, I was like, yeah, no, he's just a conspiracy theorist. Like that, it's not true. But we do have to consider that some of these people could be potentially bought and paid for to be wasting our time, like legitimately. It's the amount of money that's spent on propaganda and marketing campaigns and things like this. It's not a stretch of the imagination to consider that these organizations could be encouraging or potentially even financially supporting people who come into lives just to waste time, just to sow chaos, to make divides in communities. A lot of that is definitely possible. Obviously, I don't want to be like, oh, jump on that every time as like, yeah, obviously this person is paid by, so and so. But it is something to consider when you get someone that is just like so ridiculous or so rage baity that it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, something else could definitely be going on here.
Oh yeah, I've never even thought about that, but now that you even bring it up, I have no doubt that that definitely happens to some capacity. I can
So,
imagine, especially if it's somebody that has a very large community around them.
yeah.
Um,
But see, it's even easier to disrupt our, smaller engagement lives because, only a few bad actors in the guest request could wreak a lot of havoc with a few accounts, just coming in and jumping around and wasting time. And that could literally be the difference between your entire live stream being kind of like spun off onto some other person's agenda or not, and because sometimes our lives are only an hour or two. And if one or two people take up that entire live and they're kind of like controlling the narrative that entire time, that's definitely a huge like red flag.
yeah, yeah. I do find that the panels, especially like the women's panel and stuff, where like a culmination of different activists kind of come together and all have different talking points and different perspectives and are educated in all their individual spaces, like with you being you and Ozark being particularly focused on organic farming and knowing how to navigate that um, those talking points is definitely very 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 beneficial. I think often find myself uh, engaging only as far as I can, which isn't that far, but I know I when I came into the TikTok space, I told myself, oh, I could do this because I could just argue ethically if it's ethically okay and just stick to that because I know um, at my heart of hearts that it's just it's not moral and if we just talk about the ethics we can agree that it's not moral, but I've learned like especially watching the women's panel and watching the when a majority of the people in the live, especially like the guests that are up, are vegans, and everybody kind of jumps in to you know steer the conversation down a certain path. Those conversations are always like super super helpful. So I find myself thinking that like maybe I can't be as educated at everything, right? And I don't want to be like a jack of all trades, but sometimes I find myself like, oh, you know what? Like, I need to learn more about this so that when I'm having conversations with people, I don't want to appear to be uneducated on, a particular subject and that be my like downfall or be used against me in any capacity. But
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for like being humble, right? And like admitting when you don't know something, right? Like that lends like respect and even potentially admiration from your audience, whether vegan or non-vegan. And somebody who has all the answers or immediately comes up with a counter argument, even though it might not be the best, sometimes that can get people into really bad situations, and not being open to like criticism. I mean, I've seen it within our community many times where people get called out live on stream, and rather than being like, you know what, like maybe I need to think about that, they'll double down, and that creates huge issues, right? Or
mm-hmm.
or they'll make up some claim, that fits their narrative, and just hoping that nobody will challenge them on it. And it's like that's not good activism, right? Much less like a good way to go about life, reacting in such ways. So I very much respect people who, will say, hey, I'm not really sure, like let me look into that, like can you provide me more sources on that, like, and I think I've seen you genuinely do that, and I know a lot of people in our community genuinely do that. And I think that's what makes us a great community, is that we're open to feedback like that, and we have other people who we can rely on for authority, if you will, on certain topics. But yeah, I think being humble is like undervalued, I think, in activism.
Yeah. I mean, there
But
have
yeah,
been people. Sorry, go ahead.
what Lydia says right now too is really important, and something I've like struggled with even in the hunting like stuff, is like getting way into like some argument and so far away from the ethics like topic. And that's something I've learned from like Lydia and Andy and a few others, is like refocusing, and Persona is really good about that too, like just not even letting 1 minute of a filter go, like just being like no 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 no, come back here. And I think that's really important too, is like understanding like the types of argument you want to have,
Yeah.
presented, and those types you want to focus on.
Yeah.
It's okay to get into the weeds a little bit, but always like remember that if you spend 20 minutes arguing about crop deaths, that's like 20 minutes you could have been talking to the audience about ethics,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that. That's why I really appreciate Andy, Ingrid, Persona. Like they don't let it go down that path at all. And I think when I first came into the space, um, I had to check myself, and I will say check my ego, because I did have a good influx of people. And I did have a lot of people that came in trolling, but they were like, "Oh, you know what? I like this vegan, blah 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 blah," and it made me think that like I don't, I appreciate the positive, um, I don't know, positive feedback from these people, but at the same time, like I'm not here. It made me have to think like I'm not here to for you to like me or think that I'm a cool vegan. It's not about that. And I think I slowly drifted away from that, and and yeah, I hear these conversations, which is why I appreciate everybody here, especially all the vegans in our community, of learning how to navigate those conversations, because there's a lot of times where I have conversations with somebody, or we're talking with somebody, and it starts to like go on this like long rabbit hole of something that it's like, why, I think I said this on somebody's live a couple of days ago, but why are we talking about if it's okay for you to eat the eggs from your chickens if you're still eating cows and pigs and chickens? Like,
Yeah.
why are we talking about this? Like, we need to talk about the fact that you're still consuming animals, period. Not, is it okay if I wear wool? And yeah, I find that that a lot of these conversations have got me thinking that way, and maybe not coming off as nice as I once was when I first started, doing TikTok lives. But yeah, I definitely appreciate having, everybody here, and definitely refining my approach to conversations with people, because I definitely, I look back at my first few lives, and I'm like, even though it felt like I had, um, even though it felt like I had people coming in and out. What happened? Um, Somebody's messing with something. um, uh, it wasn't, in my opinion, beneficial for the animals. It was like beneficial for my ego, and I'm glad that I'm not like doing those kind of lives anymore.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely get that. Yeah, I feel like I have to work myself up to get like ready to do a live, just because I know, especially when I do the hunting lives, like what kind of people I'm gonna engage with, and it's very hard to get them to focus back on the ethics. So like I try to chip away at like, is hunting a important part of conservation, and that kind of bleeds into the ethics, and like at least on that topic, that's my way of like, meeting somebody with like where they're at, and chipping away at this one fundamental thing, right? Like if, for somebody it might be the eggs, but for hunters it might be, well, overpopulation, or oh, predators are evil, or something like that. If you can knock that one hurdle down for them, like the next hurdles when they go to the next vegan live or somewhere else, they have one less hurdle, that they have to overcome with a new activist. And I think that is really important. And I think a lot of times it's easy to like hyper fixate on like trying to immediately convert people. And I think there's definitely, needs to be those spaces. But at the same time, I think there needs to be like places where we compassionately like meet people where they're at and explain to them the rationality, of the situation. Because some people, really do struggle with connecting with emotions or, ethics, because they have, whether it's debate bros or somebody who's been, conditioned around violence, like in ranching and hunting. People have all of these hurdles that they have to get over, to get to the point where they're even ready to consider, like making real changes in their life. And I think that's something that a lot of times we can overlook, when we're really hyper fixated on the activism. And that's where I think like compassionate communication is like really really key, in trying to do like I I used to study like social engineering because I wanted to be like a little hacker when I was like 14. So I always think back to that of like, I like understand somebody else's position, right? Like understand, maybe the blockers that they have, and like ask them questions, get them to reveal things about themselves that give you a better understanding about where they're at and how you can appeal to them. And I think that can be like extremely powerful. Obviously, that's a lot harder to do, like in a TikTok live where you where you have kids coming up, saying vulgar, slurs and stuff. But yeah, I think that's something that, is really important in considering the way we speak to people, how we connect with people over these topics.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. There's a lot of times when I have conversations with people and they go on like a ramble and they might be saying trying to give a justification for something maybe specific to what they were asked by somebody else. And I feel like I've tried to develop the skill to kind of pinpoint where that specific person might be having like a disconnect, whether it's like, well, wait, you said that, I don't know, you had a dog when you were younger, or you said you felt bad because of this, and try to like hone in on those, I guess, what would you call them, chinks in the armor, or what is what cracks in the armor.
Yeah,
um
or holes in the blindfold.
yeah, and like focus on that to kind of hammer away at those points.
Yeah,
Definitely takes
yeah, and
practice.
I think it's really important to like I've learned so much from the community, like with the women's panel and Ingrid focusing on like inherent rights. Like I think that to me was like a big shift in my thinking about activism too. Like having that in your back pocket of being like, all right, this is an easy litmus test. Like, do you believe in human rights, right? Like starting in that point, can we at least agree upon human rights, right? And then walking people into, the consideration for other animals. Okay, like you consider your dog, right? Like your pet. Like you have these considerations for some animals, but not others. And like having like all of these different paths that you've learned from other activists, can be extremely, extremely valuable, in that like compassionate communication, because once you connect with somebody and understand like where they are at, then you can figure out which of these paths makes the most sense, to go down as far as an argument, or just presenting, topics. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd open the floor to anybody else that wanted to come in. I'm probably gonna end the live in five or so minutes. But if any other of the vegans want to say anything, you're more than welcome to pop up and share your thoughts. If not, I can just go into, I guess, the main reason why I decided to still go live and then have my little, I guess, mini announcement. I don't know. I'll give it a second or two. These are not vegans. Get out of here. Okay, well, yeah, I guess. No, so for those that know, me personally, I do return to work next week, return to office. So things are gonna kind of change for me in general. I'm not gonna be as active, especially on TikTok. At least for partway through the week, Tuesday through Thursday, I work in office, so I'm gonna be pretty busy and won't be around as much. But I did want people to know that I'm gonna kind of take a break from the panel stuff. At least my lives, like me going live and having people up and having discussions with people and streaming it to YouTube and all that. Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about I guess ways to spend my time to to how can I use my time to generate the most reach, and not from a financial standpoint at all, but more just who can I reach more people with? Because if you've been listening from the beginning, yeah, I've been starting to feel like having conversations with people on here, though it is great to have not only the person that I'm talking to maybe potentially change, but also people in the comments that yeah, I don't know. I feel like I could be creating content, and maybe even also fulfilling the like creative side of me. You know, using my current skills to create content. You know, editing content and stuff like that. And I find more talking points to talk about, things to discuss, vegan topics, non-vegan topics. But yeah. So yeah, I just wanted people to know that you're probably not gonna find me live on TikTok that much, other than like maybe an impromptu or something. I will probably still be joining other people's lives and having conversations with people. So for the YouTube people as well, that means that I'm probably not gonna have as many of these videos up for people to watch. But I do want to really take a step back for maybe for a week and kind of think about what kind of approach I can do. Uh, Sorry. Oh yeah, what kind of approach I can do to, I guess, optimize my reach while also feeling fulfillment in the activism that I'm doing. So hold on, let me ban this person. Fuck you. How about that? Dynasty edits. Fuck you. Uh, um, yeah. So.
Is that some persona energy in here, or what?
Uh, I feel like my TikTok personality and my in real life personality are very different. I'm not. I'm very much sassy in life. Like people that approach me like that, I just don't have the energy to engage with that stuff. I'm talking and it's like telling me to quit yapping. Fuck you. Um, yeah. So I just wanted to let people know that I don't want to disappear. I'm not like saying this is the end. I just need to take some time to think about how I could um, reach more people while also feeling fulfilled. Because yeah, sometimes I do these lives, and I feel like I haven't done anything for animals, even though I know that that's not true, and you know one person is better than no person. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how I can better use my time and better use my skills to get the message out there. So yeah, I just want people to know that, I guess. I'll still pop around on people's lives. They'll still see me in the chat box, and occasionally maybe I'll go live, you know, if I'm feeling like I want to engage in conversations with people. But the overall, you know, Monday through Friday, try to go live every day, Monday through Friday, is probably gonna definitely dwindle down, especially since I'm returning to office a little bit. So so yeah, I hope that you know everybody's okay with that, or you know, appreciative of the time that I've spent, you know, having my lives, and having you all up here has definitely taught me a lot about veganism, um, and definitely meeting you all has definitely you know educated me on you know how to even just navigate these conversations and stuff. So um, yeah, I appreciate everybody, and all the people on YouTube and all the people on TikTok and the community that I found on TikTok. I just need to take some time. Help more than lives? I don't know. No idea.
Yeah,
Um,
that all sounds good. I definitely respect, you recognizing that you need to take a break. I think your consistency has been awesome. Like I don't know of many other people. Like I know Andy for a while, like maybe 6 to 8 months ago, was like doing every day consistently, but yeah, like you've been amazing, and I mean the conversations that I've heard and been a part of have been awesome, and I like mad respect to you. And now all we can ask is that when we have our live, that you have them up at work and you force your coworkers to listen into them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I think over the short time, which I think has been about maybe a month and a half, I feel like I've grown a lot as an activist. I still have a lot more growing to do, um, but I think taking a step back and thinking about how to like you choose better words and how to approach different conversations with different people and hear everything that you all you know uh, all the conversations that you all get into with people on the panels and on your own individual lives is it's just something that I need to take a step back and kind of think about how to keep that consistent and how I can do it better and just constantly improve because yeah, I think even when I started doing YouTube content 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, um, yeah, the way that I did it was very different from how I am now, and I just want to get better. Hearing Andy talk with I forget their name. I think it's Richard or Robert or something, but pretty much on his like Sunday live, really had me thinking because it does end up it does usually end up where you have a consistent flow of people and then um, um, it just turns into a live full of vegans, and obviously that's not a bad thing. But you all are already vegan. Like, we don't need to convince you guys to be vegan. So I feel like if I get back on the content creation game, it'll give me more topics to kind of vent about and talk about and give and share people, with share concepts with the people that maybe this is wrong, you know, um, whatever current events are happening, and that that sort of shareable content will let me feel like I'm making a difference, spending my time to be more creative, and then shareable content that people can have. So I think, in short, yes, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go live here and there. I will definitely be around on other people's lives and occasionally popping up there. And also, I do think that the idea, Ben, that you suggested of um, having conversations with people, and if they drop down, then like continuing that breakdown to maybe have that turn into some form of content as well, as super useful. I wish I was doing that from the beginning. So so yeah, that was my announcement. Hopefully, I will still be around to some capacity in most of your lives, even when I return to work. I just don't know what that's gonna look like. It's definitely gonna be a big shift. I haven't been to work in like 4 years now, so um, yeah, it's gonna be a big life shift for me next week. So gonna take some adjusting, and I hope I could still interact with all of you outside of that, when things change. So yeah, sounds good. Thanks. Thank you, Ben, for hanging out with me on the live. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I will have to look into Roger Yates. I have to do a lot of research. Um, okay, well, thanks everybody. I think I'm going to end the live there, get back to work. Thank you, Ben. And thank you, all the people on the YouTube side as well. Martin, Drac, Louis, as well. You guys rock. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Thanks, Ben. Bye, everybody. Bye, Anna. Bye, Keith. Bye, Lydia. Bye, Alec. Bye, Saren or Herbivorous Ouroboros. Bye, Drac. Bye, Martin. Bye, Louis. I'm going to try to make more YouTube content. Hopefully, it's going to be a little bit slow because I'm trying to find good um, sources of information to provide me with like a steady flow of topics. If anybody has anything to share, please DM me. I am doing research to find good talking points, which is why I found a couple articles about, Freya Cox and some of these other people. So it's gonna be a little bit slow, but hopefully eventually I will get back on the content creation bandwagon and stuff. Okay. Bye everybody. Bye Ben.
See ya.
Bye YouTube. Thank you guys for hanging out. I know, like, I really appreciate you guys being here. I wish I could do more public outreach. I feel like that would be definitely very helpful. But I know, as some of you may know or have noticed so far, I've just been a little bit worried about, protecting my anonymity currently at the moment. Maybe that will change in the future. But I do want to get back on creating videos and stuff and talking about some particular topics that I have thoughts on, similar to that Freya Cox interview, where the publication didn't even bother mentioning anything about veganism, or even I found this article about this group called the Bell People. It's a festival in Greece where they wear goat and cows animal hides and run around saying how that they do it because they want to teach people that what is it? Oh, it's like it's spring and life is beautiful and blah 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 blah, and that kind of pisses me off. Like, how are you gonna have a festival focused on cheering people up and making them feel happy about spring? Meanwhile, you're like slaughtering these animals to wear them. So that's like some of the ideas of some videos I want to do. I just needed a little bit more research, see what this festival really is about. It's called the Koudounaryoi. It's in Greece. It's a small village. I couldn't find any videos about them or any videos on the like festival itself other than really really outdated stuff. But for anybody that's curious in the YouTube side, that's the name of the festival. Oh my gosh, you guys are 60 and 70 years young. I don't know what you're talking about, but I appreciate that. I will definitely try to get back on the YouTube content creation and providing you all with some more informative. Well, I mean, you guys are already probably really informed, but maybe content for you all to maybe hear more about that you had never thought of before, and then share it with other people, and maybe those topics would also be good to get people thinking. Like, I recently learned about this camel technique called blinding, where they in short, what they do is if a mother camel is rejecting her young, they will strap a T-shirt covering her nose and her teeth. Like, they pretty much take her upper jaw and they put a cloth over her teeth and fold it up over her nose, so that she can't smell or bite. And they do that because, see, I'm finding like conflicting evidence, so I need to make sure what I find is actual evidence. Because one says that they do it because they want the camel to give milk to a young that's not hers. But then another video I saw says that it is hers. It's just that the camel rejects her young, and in order for that young camel to survive, they actually want her to drink from the camel's, drink milk from her mother. So I have to make sure which one I'm talking about is actually true. But the other disgusting part about that also is they stitch up her rear end to make her feel like she gave birth. I will have to just double check to make sure, but they definitely stitch up her rear end to make her body think, oh, like you just gave birth, so produce milk. I need to find out if they're doing this out of the best interest of the young calf, which I think is still fucking fucked up, or if they're doing it because they need the camel to produce milk and to feed her young calf, or a young calf, to then grow that calf up to be either meat or another milk producer. So I'm gonna do some research on that, see if I can find like conclusive evidence, and I want to do a YouTube video about that because yeah, it's disgusting. It's so fucked up how we manipulate these animals into situations where they're like they're not even we're trying to confuse their bodies for our benefit. Much similar to the fact of how we take the eggs away from chickens so that their mind and their body says, "Hey, like we need to produce another egg because there's no egg for us to incubate." Right? I'm pretty sure that's a technique that they do as well to also increase egg production. So it's like shit like that, you know. And maybe if people watch videos like that are not vegan, at least maybe they'll see the cruelty in what's happening, and maybe that would convince them to be like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Like, this is cruel. We don't need to do this. We could just drink regular milk. We could just eat this, eat that. So I know I kind of rambled more than I intended, and now the TikTok people didn't hear that ramble, but just to give you guys an idea, since I'm still kind of here, I wanted to let you all know that I do intend to do videos and still be around here. It's just this consistent Monday through Friday streaming is gonna definitely either stop or just be very, 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 sporadic. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're in the history books for sure. We're gonna look back at them and think about, man, what a fucked up thing to do to these animals. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you all being here. Hopefully, I catch you guys in the comments of my videos or in the occasional times where I do go live. I look forward to seeing you guys again. But I'm sure I'll see you guys in like Chip's stream and activism, or seeing you in the what's his name, Homeless Vegans lives. You guys are still going to see me. Don't worry. But I will catch you guys all later. Okay.